But I also know it still hurts. So come here.
No, what do you, I don't.
See? Before, you would have punched my head off for doing this.
I still might.
Give me 10 episodes in a movie of the buddy cop vibes of Nolan and Allen traveling across the galaxy, battling different beings, and being best friends. Welcome back, everybody. This is my breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 2. What a chilling yet entertaining episode of Invincible. We not only get the backstory of the Surge virus, but we also see Allen and Nolan gathering warriors and items that can help them in a war. And speaking of war, we also meet the betrayer responsible for the death of billions. There's a lot to cover in this breakdown, so let's get it in like Allen and Talia in the bedroom. Full spoilers ahead. We open in deep space to find a meteorite, or which looks to be as one, as it crashes on the surface of Viltrum. As the dust settles, a green gas starts pouring out of the craft. It looks small and almost insignificant compared to the cities of Viltrum, but as we'll learn soon, this is the beginning of the end. We're introduced to an instructor who's training children Viltrumites about their history and their previous emperor, Argal, who was killed by who they call the Betrayer. Emperor Argal was beloved by the Viltrumites because he showed them their true power and he made them one and gave them the stars. Argal had no heirs and millions were lost in the Great Purge that followed his death. The instructor has one of the children explain why the Purge was so important, as she says that despite their losses, it ultimately made them the strongest beings in the universe and made them invincible. As class ends, the kids are told to prepare for a fight to the death tomorrow, which seems to be just a typical Tuesday for the Viltrumites. But we see the instructor has his own final exam to deal with. Two Viltrumites, a male and a female, arrive and they immediately launch a brutal high-speed assault on him. This fight was graphic as hell. It is the classic Invincible gore that we've come to love. There's some gross eye action going on at one point. A hand literally punches through someone else's hand. But here's the real fun of this fight. As they're beating the life out of him, we realize that these aren't just random Viltrumites, these are his parents. In Viltrum culture, you don't just turn into an adult, you survive your parents trying to kill you. The father seems almost impressed, but the mother, not so much. She is a cold-blooded, pure-hearted Viltrumite. She beats her son's face into the pavement, and it's a sequence that kind of felt like what Nolan did to Mark in Season 1's finale. Now, just as she's about to deliver the killing blow, the father stops her. He's seen enough, but the mother isn't proud, she's actually disgusted. She calls them both pathetic and she flies off in the atmosphere. As the instructor wipes the blood from his face, his father tells him to get his first assignment. He goes on to say to make Argal proud, and his name is actually revealed in this moment as we find out that the instructor is actually Nolan. Kind of gives you a better understanding of why Nolan treated Mark that way because we see how he was raised by his parents on Viltrum. Now we see Nolan joining the others who survived their parents' adult ritual and everything seems normal until suddenly one of the soldiers starts coughing and then we see blood coming from their eyes and their mouth and they drop dead. Now the leader thinks that this is just an isolated situation, but then another soldier goes down as well. This being the beginnings of the Surge virus, a biological weapon designed to attack Viltrumite's DNA. We see a much younger General Krieg who realizes that the meteorite from the beginning of the episode was a delivery system for the virus as it spreads throughout the air. The scale of this was kind of hard to wrap your head around, right? Because we see this montage of the virus sweeping through the planet. At one point, even Nolan contracts it but manages to survive. Which we find out the ones who survived the virus, like Nolan, had to live a brief moment of weakness. We even get a shot of Conquest when he lost his arm because of the weakness of his strength and his inability to regenerate. We see billions of Viltrumites dying, and this is the moment that explains why in the present day, there are fewer than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the entire universe. The planet is placed under total quarantine as their Grand Regent Thrag gives the orders to eliminate any enemies who might have created this and to keep this secret from the rest of the galaxy. As we end this opening sequence with the dead bodies of the Viltrumites orbiting around their planet. But this isn't the end as we know, as Thrag says that this is an opportunity to show their true strength. Man, talk about a way to open an episode, right? Like, we got to see Nolan's origins, the death of a civilization, the introduction of the surge virus, all within 10 minutes. And I gotta say, this may be one of the best openings of any episode of this series. I mean, this was just excellent backstory. Now, flash forward to present day, we find Nolan was telling a story to Allen, and Allen brings up a good question, and the same question I have for you all watching or listening to this breakdown. After what we just saw with the surge virus, do you feel bad for what happened to the billions of Viltrumites that died? Now, Allen learns that Nolan's mission to Earth was to serve two purposes. One was to conquer Earth, but he was also sent to various planets to find a genetic match to save and continue their species. Now, obviously, with the success of Mark, Earth was the perfect match, which explains why Earth and Mark are so important. Now, they arrive back to Alan's planet, where he finds his girlfriend Talia is excited to see him. The duo arrive at Alan's planet, and things start off with a literal bang when Alan's girlfriend Talia is so taken back to a Viltrumite in their home that she shoots Nolan right on sight. Now, Allen explains that Nolan is on their side, and he takes Nolan to see the leader of the coalition, Thetis. Nolan comes bearing gifts, or rather secrets. He confirms the truth about there only being 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the entire universe, but Nolan has more. He shows him his travel novels coated with the details of every weapon and biological weakness known to the Viltrumites. But Nolan doesn't trust if Thetis is a true Viltrumite because he's never heard of him, but this is where Thetis reveals that he went by another name to the Viltrumites, and he is the Betrayer. Yes, the same person responsible for the death of their beloved previous emperor, and also the person that was responsible for the death of billions. Now, despite being among his people's biggest enemy, Nolan will still honor his friendship with Allen and help gather the needed resources to help in a war, but Nolan himself nor his sons will be a part of this war. Now, the mission is set for Nolan, Allen, and Talia to go into space to find the weapons in Nolan's book. Their first target is to find Space Rider's Infinity Ray. Now, we know that this Infinity Ray just isn't some regular gun. It is a weapon capable of wiping out entire armies, eliminating suns, and more importantly, it's one of the few things in the universe that can fatally wound a Viltrumite in a single shot. Now, they aboard the Venture, which is a beat-up junker of a ship that looks like it's held together by space duct tape and a prayer. It's almost like a weird mix of a poor man's Millennium Falcon with the cosplay crew of Star Trek. Now, to start their journey, Allen and Nolan track the coordinates hidden within Nolan's books, or as Allen jokingly calls it, his novella. Nolan reveals a secret that he's kept for over a century. Back in his Viltrumite loyalist days, he fought the legendary Space Racer. Nolan admits that he didn't kill him because he feared that the racer's weapon would self-destruct. He figured burying the guy under tons of rock was enough. But when Nolan goes to grab the ray, the weapon reacts. It flies towards the rubble, and out crawls Space Racer, very much alive and very much pissed off. We get another great action sequence, 2 against 1, and it usually favors a duo, but the Space Racer is a beast. With his strength and his beam that can shoot through anything, he actually gets the upper hand. Now, just before he blasts off on his racer, Allen and Nolan manage to get him to take a quick pause. Now, after being buried for 100 years, Allen, with the help of Nolan, explain why they're here. In no world would the Space Racer ever join Nolan after what he did, but after Allen explains the Coalition mission to stop the Viltrumites, and more importantly, after Nolan apologizes, which shocks the Space Racer, he considers their offer to join. The Space Racer flies off to meet with Thetis, who they're hoping will convince him to join their side in the war. Next up, a tiny, unassuming planet home of the Sinlac beetles. These little guys are the key to a major tactical advantage. Their shells contain a compound that can injure Viltrumites, as Allen gathers a few that will be weaponized into darts. I gotta say it now, I am absolutely obsessed with the Nolan and Allen dynamic in this episode. Their banter is just top tier. Watching them go from enemies to these close friends and seeing them gathering space bugs together is something I never knew I needed. Seriously, give me a spinoff of these two traveling the universe, fighting weird aliens, and arguing about Nolan's past mistakes. I would watch 10 seasons of that. But as I digress, this journey isn't all jokes and bugs as they hit a fork in the road that reminds us of Nolan's dark history. They visit a planet where the ecosystem is completely fried. Nolan moved their planet closer to the sun, killing any and all life on the planet. It's one of the many somber moments of reflection for him on their quest. They then head to the Geldarians, a race of super-intelligent humanoid scientists. Now, they're still recovering from the Viltrumites' previous attacks, so they can't provide soldiers, but they give Allen and Nolan another opportunity. They point them towards Earth to find Tech Jacket, who is a mixture of Iron Man meets Blue Beetle. We got a glimpse of this character in Season 3, and it looks like he's going to have a much bigger role in the coming war. Next, they track down Battle Beast's home planet, but the warrior is nowhere to be found. They get a hint about his location, but their next stop is the deadliest one of them all. Nolan and Allen arrive at the planet of the Ragnars. If you remember last season, Ragnars are one of the only species capable of physically tearing a Viltrumite apart. Years ago, Nolan tried to neutralize them by moving a massive disk to block their sun, which ended up freezing the planet and killing everything nearby, as they arrive in hopes to find a frozen Ragnar to put onto their ship. Now, they have a little bit of a hard time finding any Ragnars, as Nolan orders the captain of the ship to nudge the disk to thaw a small area. Unfortunately, the captain makes a massive mistake and accidentally destroys the entire disk. In doing so, the planet thaws instantly as Nolan and Allen find themselves surrounded by a small army of defrosting Ragnars. It turns into a horror movie really fast. As the beast wakes up, Nolan and Allen are forced to fight for their lives. This scene was incredible because it really showcased their friendship and bond. They are constantly covering each other's backs, taking hits from one another. Now, just as they're about to be overwhelmed, Talia takes command of the ship as she maneuvers the ship to temporarily eclipse the sun, refreezing the Ragnars just long enough for Nolan and Allen to stumble back upon board. They barely escape, but they leave empty-handed. No Ragnars were captured. Now, for the most part, their mission was mostly successful with a good chance of Space Racer joining. They have some deadly bug darts and some other potential prospects, but Allen can see that Nolan is a bit conflicted. He knows his species are a plague to the universe, but to him, those horrible things they had him do for his duty were to bring order to chaos and better the galaxy. He's struggling with the reality that he's essentially being a part of the extinction of his own race. But Allen has to remind him that this is a necessary step to end their reign, as Allen gives Nolan a big unwanted hug. We end the episode with them telling Thetis everything they've managed to find on their quest, and he seems to be pleased. Now again, even with the idea of Space Racer, Tech Jacket, and Battle Beast potentially joining them, Nolan knows that this still might not be enough. Thetis once again brings up Nolan and Mark joining, but even if he wanted to ask Mark to join the fight, he knows he can't return to Earth. It's here that Thetis shows Nolan his dark secret. Thetis takes Nolan to a secret lab where he reveals that he was the one behind the engineering of the Surge virus, which he says is his greatest sin, and he's also manufacturing a new and more deadly version of it. Nolan chokes Thetis in anger, but he stops himself from killing him. Thetis promises Nolan that he'll only use his new strain of the virus as a last resort. With the weight of this knowledge and the impossible choice hanging over him, Nolan knows what he has to do. And that means convincing Mark with a heavy heart but a renewed sense of grim purpose. Nolan is headed to Earth. Now, as we cut to our post-credit scene, we see Conquest has returned back to Viltrum, disappointed because of his failure to complete his mission. He immediately bows down and is prepared for death by the hands of Thrag. But Thrag doesn't reward Conquest's request to be killed. Instead, he tells him that they've got work to do. And that, my friends, is another great episode in the books. This episode was so damn good in my opinion. The moral conflict of Nolan, learning about the origins of the Surge virus and the betrayer and all the backstory and lore was just done so damn well. We see Nolan be entrapped between a literal rock and a hard place. We have, again, the reveals. Thrag's plan is unfolding. We just are gearing up for what I think might be the best season of this show so far. Again, I jokingly say it, but I really mean it. I want to see more of Allen and Nolan in the future, but I know we don't have time for the buddy cop vibes for much longer because things are about to hit the fan. With all that being said, that will bring an end to this week's breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 2. Now, as I did with episode 1, I'm watching these episode by episode, so I will be watching episode 3 next. But in the meantime, let me know your thoughts about the second episode. What did you love? What did you like? What are you hoping to see in the weeks ahead? Let's have those conversations in the comments below. Before we wrap up, I want to thank you all for watching or listening to this breakdown. Do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the hype button, share your thoughts in the comments, consider sharing this video, and more importantly, consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. Now, if you all are listening to this via podcast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you all get your podcasts from, let me know your thoughts about this episode, as well as subscribing to the podcast and consider leaving me a 5-star review. Alrighty, y'all, I'm headed off to watch episode 3. Again, thank you for watching this breakdown. You can see my breakdown of episode 1, 2, and 3, which will be available now. In the meantime, thank you all again for listening or watching. You all stay safe. And remember, you all are awesome, and I'll see you again soon.